So today we're at Tri-Nant Ponds in South Wales. Tri-Nant, Welsh for three streams, and today we're fishing mallard. We've also fished dragonfly, but I'll show you dragonfly later. That, if I zoom in, is the overflow at the shallow end, and it's important to note that it's at the shallow end because I'll explain later about overflows. I don't know whether you can see these carp, but they're all on the top because of the hot weather. So we've got a shallow end, an island with water, the pond obviously going both sides of it, and then down there in the distance you can see the deep end, and the whole thing is about probably the size of a rugby pitch, maybe a bit smaller. Yeah, it's fizzing everywhere. There's carp floating on the top everywhere, which is why we decided to fish what we call the shallow end. See if we can see anything here. There's bubbles coming up everywhere. Fish swimming near the surface everywhere. And just to get the weather into context, today is July the 1st. Can we see our peg from here? No. Today is July the 1st. In June we had 2 short heat waves in the UK, which is unusual to say the least. Yesterday at Wimbledon, people were fainting to the point where play had to be stopped. And then last night the cloud cover came over, stopped any heat escaping, and today it is muggy. And when I say muggy, even setting up 4 rods left us bathed in sweat. Right, 4 rods out on rod pods, 2 landing nets, and we use both. The small net has got a 4-meter handle. It looks telescopic, but it's not. It's the type like a fishing pole where you pull all the sections out and then put them back in the other way. The big one is telescopic and it's very big. Scales, weighing, sling and mat. Oh, it's hot. I'm using dry bags which have already been made up at home, and there'll be a cutaway to show that. It's the umbrella, and there's the rods. 2 of them on dry bags, mine. 2 of them on method feeders, Will's. 2 different lots of ground bait. I'll go into why that is in a minute. And then on the next peg for later, after I've done this filming, my seat box, which is not a seat box. It's a black storage container that holds everything to do with pole fishing, and which I can sit on because that's a bit cheaper. And then my pole, which, because I'm not rich, is not a 16-meter match pole. It's a 10-metre edge monster from Preston. About 200 quid, just under. Oops, got to stop, there's an alarm. Be back now. Right, Will's rod is alarmed. Should I get the the small landing net? He's trying to tangle you. Got him. Come here. Ooh. Getting round to the sling. Oh, a nice common for Will of about £4, something like that, which isn't bad because that's the first cast and we've only been here, I don't know, 10-20 minutes. Right, so before Will got that fish, I was explaining that I use a pole now and again. It's not an expensive one. It's a £200 edge monster, which, let's face it, you don't have to use down the edge. You can use it out in front of you, 10 metres. This is where it starts getting snaggy. We're still up the shallow end. There's the island. And the last time we were here, about 2 weeks ago, Will was casting underneath that tree, very close to the island. And I don't know whether you can see, but there's fizzing there now. And he hooked in 3 times to what, in the end, we called the monster. Because whatever it was, it snapped his hook length twice. And we put a much bigger hook length on. And again, whatever it was, it bent the hook almost straight. So here's one of the streams coming into Mallard, and as we saw up there, that's the overflow, or one of the overflows, and possibly you can see by there, lots of people float fish and fish for squirrels. We've fished under this big oak tree on a number of occasions, back in the winter usually. And we did it back in the winter because we were pegging the umbrella down then really hard. And if on the way round you see rubbish like that, don't be perturbed, because by the time we leave it'll all be gone in a big rubbish sack. It was a carp having a splash, and this is the deep end, and we'll go round the deep end now. Right, the topography of this lake is that the overflows are up the shallow end, so that if anything happened and the water started going out, then all the carp could come from the shallow end down to this deep end, which would still hold water. And in the winter, this is where all the carp come, and they feed deep. And there's some line hanging from that tree. I'll get that down later with my 4 metre landing net. And there's something up the top as well. And when I get these lines down, I often inherit weights. Somebody couldn't be bothered to take their sweet corn tin home. ×2, they'll be coming home with us. 1 mallard. I wonder why this lake is called Mallard. Right. Off in the distance there, which is over by the Royal Mint, there's a wind turbine, and as I've explained, there's no wind today. It's muggy, and hopefully you can see because it's a bit dark behind it, but there's 2 wind turbines around the Mint, and rather than being white, they've got green stems and yellow wings. And when those wings are flying around, if you look at it as a blur, it's supposed to look like a daffodil. Let's get to the bottom of the deep end and I'll start again. Right, this is the far end of the deep end, the far end of the lake at the deep end, and we're looking down onto Dragonfly, and hopefully you can see that there are people fishing there. It's far more popular. It's all types of fish lake, and people pole fish, ledger, all sorts down there. We prefer mallard because it's more of a rough lake. Another fish for Will, this time a bream, I don't know, £1.5, £2. Again on the method feeder. So while I experiment with dry PVA bags, Will sticks to, and always sticks to, method feeder with ringers, 10mm slim, which is like a dumbbell I guess, wafter, and then the sticky pellets are covered in pink haze. This has done him well all through the winter and now into the summer, and his philosophy is it keeps winning, so why change? And he does keep winning because he beats me continually. From the end of the lake, if we look up, back up to that big oak tree in the middle where I said we'd fished before, someone was fishing there today, turned up an hour before us, left about 3 o'clock, something like that. Asked us how we were doing, and we explained about all the carp we'd had. He said he had a couple of nice ones on floating bread. We didn't bring bread. 14 was one of our favourite pegs through the winter. Again, casting out into the deep bit, down the deep end, not the part that we're fishing today, but the other end, shallow end. There is a problem with this peg, and I don't know if I can get back far enough, but as you're casting out, you've got that overhanging tree that side and that overhanging tree that side, just to add to problems. And after the 5-pounder came, sorry, 6-pounder, no, 5-pounder, came this common of 5.5, but he fought about twice as hard, I would say, and my right arm is still shaking on 18 to 20s elastic again. Whew. I'm shattered in this heat, and so is Will after netting him, and I guess the fish is too, so let's get him back. Right, let's put him back then. Whoop. You're setting off alarms, Mr. Carp. There he goes. Come on, off you go. Wakey, wakey.
He is breathing.
Yeah. And away. Come on. Come on. Oh, there he goes.
You woke up then?
Yeah. The 10. But he weighed in at a very angry 7. Very angry 7. And I think he's ready to go. And away you go. And then this 6-pounder on a dry bag. Maybe the first on a dry bag, but he needs to get it back in and quick. Right, so there's the other overflow. Whether this is a peg or not is debatable because of the sedge and what have you. But as you can see, if I move forward, there's a narrow channel between here and the island. And on our first couple of visits, we thought this was ideal carp territory. And we caught some nice ones here. And we also got snagged a lot here. And oh, you probably can't see it, but there's line hanging from the tree there. I think I can see an orange boilie up in the tree. So it wasn't only us that found it snaggy. This is yet another overflow heading off down towards Dragonfly. It's higher than the main overflow in the pond, but if that one gets clogged up, and it does sometimes with twigs, this one takes over. Will is now relaxing, having pulled in a number of fish and netted a number of others. That's our peg, all our equipment, and that's my pole peg and my pole equipment. But the peg that Will is on is a sit down and relax one every now and again, and it's the one with 4 rods on the pods. And we're back to the entrance again and our car, and just over there is the amenities block. There's toilets between those 2 buildings, and if you look, if I get between those trees, you can see the main gates. Now check the opening and closing times before you come, because one thing Jonko stresses is that if he says he's opening at 7 or 8 or whenever it is, not to come before then, because if you have to queue, then you're blocking up the road, and if you're blocking up the road, then ambulances can't get through, and if ambulances can't get through, they can't get to the old people's home at the top of the road.